Hello and welcome to The Print. US President Donald Trump announced reciprocal tariffs on countries across the board, declaring a 26% discounted reciprocal tariff on India. Well, what implication it has for India and for the Indian economy? What should the government's response be? To discuss all this and much more, we have with us the national co-convener of Swadeshi Jagran Manch, Ashwini Mahajan. Welcome to The Print, sir.
Namaskar.
जी सर, सबसे पहला प्रश्न, how will this impact India?
You see, earlier on, whenever US had imposed higher tariffs on India, it was on India itself or some other countries, but it was not across the board. Now, this time, and earlier in case of withdrawal of GSP, was also specific to some commodities for India. But this time it is throughout the globe. The US has imposed higher tariffs, higher reciprocal tariffs, what they say, throughout the globe. And in the list of countries, our position is 19th. As you rightly said, discounted tariffs. And and some people were saying, oh, Donald Trump is a close friend of Prime Minister Modi, and still he is saying so that he will be imposing tariffs. But that he has shown that maybe because of his friendship with India, that he had chosen to impose lesser tariffs on India vis-a-vis the rest of the world. And when you see, when you compare the two countries which are competing for US markets, they are in India and China. China faces a reciprocal tariff of 34% vis-a-vis 26% tariff with India.
Right. Sir, what should the government's response be? What should the Modi government do as far as this is concerned?
You see, since long we had been, you know, uh, adopting uh, wait and watch approach, and in earlier occasions, yes, when we thought that it was not right, it was not appropriate for US to have raised their tariffs in Trump's first inning. We retaliated also by way of higher tariffs. But this time, since we had been negotiating and talking to U.S. administration, and U.S. administration has also been showing their sensitivity to the concerns being raised by India, and I think it will take some more time for reaching out to a more appropriate free trade agreement with the US. But I think negotiations are on, and this will help uh, to safeguard the interests of Indian agriculture, dairy, and other sectors. And we have to work out which sectors we can give concessions. But it definitely there are certain red lines where concessions cannot be given, especially where the livelihood of the people is involved, say for agriculture, dairy, and small scale industry.
Well, you mentioned agriculture. I specifically wanted to, understand how will agricultural products be impacted, and they want access to Indian market for agriculture products. So where does it all fit in?
You see, many of the US agriculture products are coming to India, like almonds and apples. But when it comes to general agricultural produce, where US had been giving a lot of subsidies to their farmers, as a result of which they become cheaper. And they make it sure that by giving subsidies, uh, the prices of agricultural produce in US do not increase more than uh, the international prices. Therefore, it is difficult for Indian products to get an access in US markets. But lower priced subsidies supported agricultural produce of US can get access in Indian markets, which will not be good for the Indian agricultures, the small farmers, and their livelihood.
Right. So, what is this Swadeshi Jagran Manch's biggest concern with what the US is doing?
You see, basically, what we feel is that we were given this assurance when WTO agreements were signed that India and other developing countries can impose higher tariffs, what we call bound rate of tariff. Higher bounds were given to India and other developing countries as a special treatment for developing countries. And US and other developed countries agreed for a lower tariffs being imposed on Indian products. And this was part of the deal was that earlier on we were imposing quantitative restrictions, what we call QRs, and also we had given go ahead for uh, trips, trims, agriculture and services agreements in GATT, which ultimately became mm, the part of the WTO. That had actually led to a loss to India and other developing countries as they were paying through their nose the amount of royalty which was negligible in 90s. Now it had gone up to approximately $17 billion. US is getting $150 billion of royalty from the rest of the world, and it is all because of the TRIPS agreement. And therefore, when it was part of the deal that we had accepted certain things, and they had uh, agreed to higher tariffs being imposed by developing countries, including India. Now it is not done. This is not good. That now they say that this you are imposing high tariffs, you are a tariff king and all. It is
Hmm.
not. It should not be there, and this is something which where we have concerns.
Right. How does our government's response, if we look at so far what all has happened, how does it square with, say, the self-reliant, philosophy of Dattopant Thengade? Where does it all fit in?
You see, what we had been saying since then, that WTO as a multilateral agreement is not good for the country. And we should not enter into multilateral agreements like WTO or even plurilateral agreements like RCEP, because in such big agreements, it is very difficult to see how we are going to get benefited by the agreement, and it is difficult for negotiating also. When two countries are sitting, they can negotiate it better, and therefore we feel that though we are not against the international trade, but what we are against is the multilateral agreements. And in these multilateral agreements, we lost as I just mentioned, we lost in terms of trips, because it was not just the amount of royalty which we are paying, it is also impacting our public health. And therefore what we feel is that now, since the realignment is happening, we are trying to ink free trade agreements with different countries, bilateral agreements. We must vouch for our national interests, our public health, our agriculture, our dairy, and our manufacturing sector. We should, in any case, try to give up the interests of our Indian economy. And that is possible in bilateral agreements.
Right. What impact do you think it will have on the pharma sector? There's not much clarity on that. I mean, what exactly are these tariffs suggesting?
Uh, Pharma has been spared in reciprocal tariffs. The reason for that is here the interest of the US is involved, because US people are heavily dependent on cheaper generic medicines from India, and therefore it is in their interest only that they don't impose reciprocal tariffs, so-called reciprocal tariffs, because it will hurt their population itself. Therefore, they have chosen not to touch pharma sector, and reciprocal tariffs have not been imposed over there.
So it is in their interest, and that is why they have done it. Well, a lot of people are talking about the fact that as you also pointed out, Trump calls Modi a great friend, and then we see this tariff, which he says has been so cruel, which is hurting us. So, what kind of friendship is this? That on one level you have great friendship, and then you say that the tariff that is there is quite cruel and it's affecting US.
You see, if you ask me as a student of economics, uh, it is all that is obvious that when Chinese products reach US, they will be they will be priced at $100 product will be priced at 134. If Indian product goes there, $100 product will be priced at 126. So we are going to get relative benefit, and as a result of that, uh, I've been saying it uh, since morning that this is going to benefit India, as it would help us access more of the US market. And that is why I say that he has done his job as a friend.
Well, several countries with low per capita income have already been, hit by the highest tariffs. The tariffs will almost certainly, experts say, have very significant economic consequences, not only for the US, but the rest of the world. There could be high inflation, slower growth, and even worse. So how do you see that?
You see, it's relative again. Uh, like in US, you can definitely expect inflation to flare up. The reason is that the very objective of raising tariffs is that it will mop up your manufacturing. It will help your manufacturing to go up. Uh, but in case of US is an economy where manufacturing is almost finished. Uh, Trump himself had been saying that I want to restart my rusting factories. But the factories which had been rusting for decades, you cannot start them in 1 or 2 days or 1 or 2 years even. It is very difficult. And therefore, expecting that manufacturing will go up and Americans will be using only American products is something which is unreasonable thinking. And therefore, US is going to face flaring up of inflation, and this can cause hardships to their common man, and also not just in terms of prices but also in terms of the high cost of borrowing for housing and others. Their EMIs may increase, their other payment of interest on their credit cards would also go up. It will be difficult for the common man to really uh, mm, face the consequences of higher tariffs.
Right. Apparently we are learning that there is a provision that if a country would address the concerns of the US, then the Trump administration can consider reducing the duties against that nation. Is that correct? And how would that be?
So, as I've said, that India is already working on the FTA with the US, and it's FTAs we have to negotiate. It takes time for negotiations, and ultimately reaching at a conclusion. So it may take 6, 7, 8 months, or even more. Uh, but US had chosen to impose tariffs before that. But I always say that there are two sets of countries. One set of countries is those which are engaging with US. They are negotiating with US and are willing to work according as per the mutual understanding. But there are countries which are not, like uh, like China is not, and India comes under the category where we are ready to negotiate, we are ready to engage. So definitely, India would have an edge over its other trading partners, other competitors uh, in U.S. markets, and this is something which is giving me some solace in this regard.
So it will not be wrong to say that US is setting a relatively lower reciprocal tariff rate of 27% on Indian goods compared to say 54% on China, 46% on Vietnam, 37% on Bangladesh. So it will definitely give India sort of a natural competitive advantage in key sectors such as textile, garments, electronics. Do you think
Yeah,
so?
yeah, it's an opportunity for India, for Indian exporters to search for new markets in US. And uh, somebody from chemical industry had told me that US China commands about 80% of the chemical markets, agrochemical market, and India has a share of 15 to 20%. But with this change, our companies will get better access in US markets. The only concern Indian companies are saying is that even when they are imposing higher tariffs on China, but China government had been giving huge subsidy to their exporters, and if they continue to do so, then situation will not be that rosy for Indian exporters. But how long they can give? This is a basic question, and
Right.
we have to see that if they increase their subsidies to their exporters, then we can ask US to charge even higher tariffs on their products.
Well, some sectors like the IT and automobiles, many say, may face selling pressure. So, how do you think that will sort of roll out?
See, we have to wait and watch, see how the things move, because it is not just India versus US, it is India versus rest of the world. And when other countries are also engaging with India, you know, European Union never used to see eye to eye to India, but they always used to say, "Oh, we can't give you technology, especially in defense and like that." But now European Commission coming to India saying that India is a big partner. India is to become the important partner in the global value chain in defense. These are some of the changes which are occurring, and as I've just said, that US has been imposing tariffs across the board, and therefore we have to see how this is going to impact India, US, not only just India, US, India to the Europe, India to other countries, India to the Middle East, India to the Southeast. So all these our trading partners, how do they behave? How do they retaliate? How do they negotiate with US? That these things will become more clear in months to come.
Right. Well, a lot of experts are also pointing out that these tariffs could not impact Indian businesses in general, but the sectors with high exposure to the US markets in specific.
As I just said, generally, though obviously it is not going to impact, but even the sectors which are having exposure in the US markets, again there is a relative thing which is working. If in US China is facing high tariffs as compared to India, definitely India will be a gainer in this case. And but we have to wait and watch, see how China behaves, how China retaliates, how other countries retaliate, and then the picture will be more clear. So now today it is the first uh, move by Trump. Now other moves in this chess are yet to come.
So you think that we should wait and assess how other countries are sort of responding, and our strategy should also take into account all that.
We should not preempt anything. We need to wait and watch. And I think Indian leadership is doing the same thing.
And what would the overall impact of this would be on the economy, the larger picture, the macro picture?
You see, in 2020, we started with the Atmanirbhar Bharat mission.
Hmm.
And we have an objective of reaching at a level of the developed countries by 2047. We India to become a developed country by 2047. And in this, I think the new churning which is happening globally is going to benefit India in several ways, because we had been improving our production capacity. We have been improving our manufacturing, our innovation, and everything related to manufacturing. And we have been giving huge amount of the production linked incentive, and that has helped us improving the productive capacity in India. You look at APIs, we have started producing APIs once again. Look at the electronics, and even laptops are being manufactured in India. Mobile phones are being exported globally. We are masters in space. We are already working very good in digitization. In defense also, we are doing good. So we have the global markets to look at, and with new churning happening, we will definitely be able to assess more and more of global markets, and that would take our journey to the Viksit Bharat by 2047.
Well, one last question. What would your, the SGM's advice will be to the government? How should they approach this issue?
You see, government is doing or moving in the right direction, but always to be extra sure, we always tell the government, and we have passed resolution also in this regard in our Raipur National Council meeting, that in any case we should not, in any case, reduce tariffs for US in agriculture and dairy and the goods which are coming from the small scale sector. We have to protect their interests, and that is very important for the livelihood of the people, for employment, and for the general well being in the country. And that is the only advice which we are giving to the government. Otherwise, while reaching at the international agreements, government have got more data, more understanding, but agriculture, dairy, and so are and small scale sector. These are the red lines which should not be crossed.
So we need to protect their interest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Mahajan, for sharing your views with us. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.